All right, here we are. Thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thank you.
Sitting down today with my good friend David Weale, fellow Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
And we met, I'm going to say 6 years ago in Vancouver
Mm-hmm.
at Parlor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good memory.
yeah. I have a great memory when it comes to pizza.
Nice.
Yeah, so we met in Parlor, and that time I was out there, I think because I was competing or I was something fitness related, and you had a healthy snack bar,
Yep.
Supplement.
That was when I was still in grind bar days. So,
grind bar. Okay.
yeah, it was a CBD infused energy bar.
Right,
So,
right.
which was that's a whole other chapter that I'm on now. But
Yeah. And now here we are, both living in Nosara, Costa Rica.
Uh-huh.
Love it.
Totally.
So I wanted to sit down and have this conversation with you because you have a very inspiring story, and you've been through some serious shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like most people who end up here, they've gone through some real adversity, some real breakdown and breakthrough moment that has them choosing a new life. So I would love for you to share a bit about, who was David Weale 10, 15 years ago that, or, leading up to certain events that had you really take a step back and say, okay, am I really living the life that I want to live? Do I want to continue being this guy? And ultimately, what led you to the path that you're on now?
Awesome. Big question.
Yeah. We'll just start light, we'll just
Just
bring
nice and
some
easy.
casual small
Dip our
talk.
toes in.
Yeah.
Well, there's actually kind of two moments
Okay.
of big times of that in my life. The one going way back, the kind of 10, 15-ish years ago now. I was originally living in Whistler. I was a pro skier. Not pro, I had some sponsors, but I competed a little bit and still did other things. I was on that journey to becoming that, and coached and did all that stuff as well. And until I broke my neck in a mountain biking accident, which, as you can imagine, would change that path.
Derail your
considerably.
career a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and caused everything to get questioned, everything to, a lot of my worldviews, all the things, it really changed a lot of stuff. But it was also a really beautiful time of learning, time of opening. That was when I started going down more of the spiritual path, learning more about nutrition and the power of mindset and meditation and how we can actually heal our bodies and all. There's so much that came from that. It was awesome to not awesome in the moment, but a lot of really awesome shit came out of it.
Yeah. And, and to just that point, it's like when you're in the moment and you're dealing with that stuff, you're questioning, why me? Oh God, poor me. Why did this happen? The anger, the frustration, the sadness. Years later, you look back and you're like, thank God that happened.
Totally.
If you hadn't broken your neck,
Who knows?
where would you have been, right?
I know, right?
You might have gone on to become a pro. You might have been down a very different path, living a very different life.
I may have still been bartending and hanging out in Whistler and
There
just
you go.
skiing and waiting for the next pow day.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that. I just,
Nope.
I'm very grateful to be on the path now that I'm on and getting to help people and getting to transform lives.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. So that was the first big change that made me reconsider my whole life path. I had been coaching skiing most of my life before then, but then learning so much about spirituality and nutrition and all the way the body works and all this and the power of mindset, and got into the personal growth world at that point as well. That kind of set me more on that path of okay, I found out about coaching. I didn't even know there was actual life coaching was a thing before then. I went through Landmarks programs around then, and I had a coach in there and found out, and just kind of was I already know how to coach. I already like working with people. I'm really patient. I was maybe I can just take all this shit that I'm learning and help other people make their lives better.
Beautiful. Now, how old were you at that point?
I was about 28 when this happened.
So
I was already
young,
pretty young, but also pretty young in the grand scheme, but also, or pretty, I don't know, I was young to start getting into coaching at that point.
Okay.
When I went through school for it and everything, it was me and a bunch of empty nesters.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, and trying to build a business, oh yeah, mid-20s guy, I can tell you how to make your life better.
Yeah.
And it's and I didn't have a lot of experience in business at that point either. So, and I had a lot of I didn't know it at that point, but I had a lot of inner work to do as far as actually believing in myself and having confidence and like being able to go out and make money and charge what I need to charge. Like there's so much that I had no idea how to do, and just, you know, I was pretty good at coaching even way back then because, you know, but just like I'll have a lot of the natural skills for it, but being a good coach and building a successful business are two very different skill sets, which I'm sure you know, obviously, from your experience too. And you had a bit of the opposite path, actually, of like super into business first and then getting into coaching. But it's like,
but that created its own set of problems. Not problems, but let's say blockages. Because yes, I was very successful as a nightlife, hospitality, entertainment guy, being self-taught through 25 years in the business. But when it came time to now change, it's like then deciding, okay, it's time to change it up. But then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm great at that, but how am I going to teach people or coach people and ask them to pay me to change their life or guide them when I'm just a high school dropout and I'm a nightlife guy, I'm a restaurant guy, and how am I going to teach someone how to be more conscious? You know, it was like I had to go through my own journey and, as you said before, heal what you didn't even know was there, so that you can
that part yet.
so you can work through it and then be the example in that sense. And you know, even though I had a large community and network through my former career, a lot of people were even skeptical, like okay, like
right,
what?
Zark
Oh
is
yeah,
doing what now?
Zark, the nightlife King Street guy, is a coach now. Yeah, okay, sure. And you know, even some of my really close friends doubted me, and even a few till today, and I know who you are, still question whether or not, you know, this is the real deal or not, you know? So it was interesting. I, you know, even having built successful businesses in the past, it's very humbling because I could open a new club or restaurant in Toronto and like, yeah, we would pack it no problem because we had that track record and that history. But now it's like, okay, I'm starting a business that I'm learning about day to day from scratch with no support, without the team behind me. And it was very humbling, and definitely had to get over my own insecurities and the imposter syndrome in order to step into, okay, yeah, I'm a coach and I could support you in changing your life, and pay me.
Yeah, it's going to cost this much.
Exactly, yeah.
Totally. And just the confidence that you're able to deliver that value, you know, like you knew that you could make money, obviously, and you knew that, you know, there's value in like the food and the drinks that you were serving and like creating the experiences for in that way, but like it's a whole different thing. So it's another journey in itself. So, you know, fast forward, I started getting into coaching. I moved down to Vancouver, away from Whistler, where I was living at the time, and kind of started surrounding myself with more entrepreneurs and getting more into that scene. And at one point I realized through some training, like, you know, another self-development program I was going through, it talked about this idea of like, there was a lot of guys out there teaching people to be rich that had only made money by teaching people to be rich.
Okay.
You know, like they read a book and then they did a workshop on it, and they hadn't actually like gone and done it. They had proved it for themselves. And that really hit me in that, you know, like I haven't, although I knew I was good at coaching in that moment. I wasn't, like, I felt like I needed to go build more life experience. I needed to go and fucking get my hands dirty.
Yeah,
and
really embody it.
Yeah. So I put all of the coaching stuff on hold for a while and started a business in the cannabis space, actually.
Okay.
Which I didn't intend to do that. I kind of just blew everything up, and then I needed a job, and I went and worked at a dispensary for a little bit, and saw that this was like 2014-ish, when in Vancouver cannabis was not legal yet, but there was dispensaries everywhere, and it was like the writing was on the wall that it was going to become legal. It was going to become this big thing, and I just kind of, I didn't plan on starting a business at first. I just wanted to like be safe, and kind of like I had a huge big blow up, and I almost launched a retreat center, and then that all fell apart, and like that was a whole fucking thing. But it was more just like I need to be safe for a minute and like get a fucking job and chill out, and then the entrepreneurial mind was there still, and wanted, like, I saw this gap of like there was a lot of edibles, but they were all just like brownies. It was all just like sugary garbage and lots of weed. And I learned about CBD as well for the first time there, and long story short, I saw this whole, no one was making anything that healthy with just CBD. So I created my own line of energy bars that I wanted to eat for like hiking and skiing and doing all the things that also had CBD. So they would help me focus, because I learned a lot through experiencing CBD that I'd had anxiety my whole life, and I didn't even really realize it as well. And it really helped me a lot with that. So started that journey, raised a bunch of money, and kind of like got my product in stores, and almost, we went on Dragon's Den actually as well, with the company, nice. And almost sold it to one of the big licensed producer groups. But then, you know, a bunch of stuff happened right around that, and it all ended up, I got a little bit taken advantage of, and the whole thing actually fell apart. And okay. I lost the whole company, kind of basically like started working with them to like create new products, but edibles weren't going to be legal for another year.
Okay.
So we wrapped everything up, packed everything up, laid off all of our staff. And then after 2 months of starting to work with this company, they pulled the rug out and they were like, sorry, no deal. Like, you're fired, and like all the things. And
wow.
So it was like, that was the second, as I mentioned, like moment of like, fuck, like,
now what? Yeah.
Now what,
yeah.
you know? And as well, like in that time, you know, like my ego got fucking huge in that moment. Like I had a almost $1 million buyout for this thing, and went and fucking bought a Tesla and did all the shit.
Okay.
And like
spent the money before you had it.
Spent the money before I had it. And then, yeah, like we had an LOI signed, but like my naive brain was like, it's done deal. Like the LOI signed, I'm working for them. Like what could go wrong?
Yeah.
Apparently that could go wrong. But in that time, I also had a bit of a golden handcuffs kind of a feeling, because part of the deal was I had to work with them for 3 years.
Okay.
And I had to like go to the office and do the corporate 9 to 5 thing. And I was like, what the fuck? Like I built this whole company so I didn't have to do that. You know, like now I'm being like trapped, and there was like an hour commute. Even though I was in a Tesla, it was still a shitty commute. And I got really fucking depressed and shitty. And I also realized in that moment, I was like, I built this whole fucking company just to prove to myself that I can do business, so I can go and be a coach. And like all I could think about while I was starting this job was also just going and starting my coaching or consulting stuff on the side.
Right.
And then so when it blew up, I was like, well, I could go and raise more money, I could build it back up again and then sell it again, or the couple years that it would take to do that, I could just, you know, cut my losses and start diving into my coaching
focus on what you
stuff.
really want to do. Yeah,
exactly.
And you know, someone shared this quote with me once, and it's always stuck. It's sometimes the best deals we do are the ones we don't. Because had that deal gone through, had you been stuck there 9 to 5, 3 years,
totally,
that's 3 years of your life.
Yeah,
that you could have been doing.
Like I was getting real shitty real quick, even in like a couple months.
Yeah.
You know, I can't imagine 3 years of doing that. Like it would have broken my soul a fair bit. And that company, it was a full stock deal as well.
Okay.
And their stock tanked.
Ooh.
It went from it was about $3 a share when we did the deal. It jumped up to like $7. So I was like fucking stoked.
Yeah.
And then after it all fell apart in like, you know, maybe the next 6 months, it dropped down to like 15 cents.
Damn.
So like I would have lost everything anyways. Like I would have had nothing
there
as well.
So, universe, divine intervention.
Right?
Like, yeah.
So wild.
Okay.
So I went through that. It was a bit of a dark night of the soul going through. But I was still in the space. I was still doing men's work. I got involved with Arca Brotherhood around the time that I started that company.
Okay.
And I was leading men's groups and doing a little bit of coaching related stuff throughout, but it was just on the side. And then so I was still doing that and got more into that. I launched another group. I started, you know, I hired a coach myself to learn more about marketing and the business side of building a coaching business. And then just kind of went for it. And around just after COVID started, my wife's business got put on hold, and she was launching her coaching stuff as well, outside of her other business. So we just decided to pick up and come down here, and now we're making it work down here, and just bought a house and just bought a truck. We're fucking making our life here happen.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
super happy for you guys
and helping guys. You know, it's like it's been a crazy fucking journey, but like now that we're here, and I've invested enough into like myself and the business to like, you know, choose powerfully for myself to make this work and to charge what I'm worth, and to like now I'm actually helping people fucking transform their lives. And it's really fucking cool.
It's the best
you
thing
know,
ever.
it's so cool. Like saving marriages and
Yeah.
fucking just like it's so wild, especially, so I do breath work as well as like helping guys with a lot of the inner work stuff, and just like seeing the lightness and seeing like when they have the insights and the ahas and like on the other side, like when like you when you got back from that retreat, like that's what I do like on a regular basis with guys, is like cracking them open and like helping them really feel and like get comfortable with all of themselves. And
because we need that. Because as men, we push everything down, we numb ourselves, we distract, we keep ourselves busy, grinding all the time, chasing that next goal, never in the moment, never in the stillness, because we don't want to feel what we've been pushing down. Because
it's fucking scary.
Yeah, especially if you've been running from it for the last 30, 40 years of your life, and then you find yourself in a place where you're still, possibly alone, in quiet. All that shit starts coming up, and that's what really COVID did for a lot of people.
Oh, it brought everything to the
COVID
surface.
has created, on one side, a real pandemic of depression and suicide, and also a mass awakening, because many people sitting at home for months and months on end, all the shit coming up, realizing
you're trapped in a little box with your wife and your kids.
Realizing I don't love my life. I don't love how I feel. I don't want to go back to that 9 to 5 or to that job or to that position. And that's been a powerful catalyst for people stepping into the work.
Totally. And also, like, I don't know how to, like, there's already like a high level of frustration, all these things, and so many people have no idea how to deal with that. How to like move energy or how to like express any sort of emotion. So they just keep stuffing it all down, and eventually it fucking blows up. And
or shows up as cancer, shows up as disease, shows up in a physical illness.
Turns inward.
So.
And anxiety and depression and like all of it, right? So that energy's got to go somewhere. 100%. And if you don't know how to move it, it moves on its own and it fucks you up.
Totally. And if you don't pay attention to the signs, the universe will give you a sign that you can't not notice. And one thing you touched on that I would love for you to just elaborate a bit more about, because I speak about men's circles and talk about, these retreats where they're intentionally designed to hold space for men, and you hold these circles. And on the last Alive retreat, you led the men's circle for our group, and I loved watching you in action. I loved the different tools and tricks you pulled out of your hat. That was super fun. And for a guy who's watching or listening to this, or to a woman who's watching and listening and wants to suggest this maybe for her partner or brother,
that's actually where
or son,
almost all of my clients come from. Is from the women. From the women, like they send their men to do the work.
100%.
So thank you.
Keep it coming. So for someone who's listening and be like, okay, like, what the hell is a men's circle? Like, what happens? Like, can you share a bit about what that experience is like? What's the intention? Why would someone want to join a men's circle?
So we all stand up, we drop our pants.
That's a different type.
Kidding. It's a space to we drop our emotional pants, essentially.
Drop our masks.
Drop our masks, take off the armor, whatever analogy you want to use. Like, most men have a real solid story that it's not okay, it's not safe to be emotional at all. It's not safe to be angry. It's not safe to be sad.
Don't be a pussy, bro.
Don't be a pussy. Like, boys don't cry. All these things, right?
Man up.
And man up. And so it's not just each guy, but it's like a cultural programming thing right now. And there's a whole history of that you can go into if you start reading the literature and stuff. But we're at a time where we're starting to unwire some of that. We're starting to deprogram and teach, because it's like, that's not sustainable. It's not like there was a time when that was a thing, but that's also like, if you look at the stats now, like suicides are like 5 times higher for men. This was before the pandemic too, like probably way higher now.
Especially men over the age of 40.
Totally. Like there's a lot of men that are hurting. And it's very normal for men to try to deal with all of that on their own. They might open up to their woman but most men don't feel safe opening up to their guy friends even.
Yeah.
And
Because they don't want to be judged.
they don't want to be judged.
Yeah.
They don't want to, all the things. So a men's circle is a space where it's safe to do that and encouraged to do that.
Yeah.
So we actually talk about our feelings. We talk about the things that are going on in our lives.
Yeah.
You know, most conversations, you know, imagine like a hockey locker room conversation. You know, like that's the typical conversation for most of men. It's just talking about like beer, babes, and blood sports. It's
Okay.
kind of the like, you know, surface level stuff, or like, you know, interesting things, or cars, or like there's all these like acceptable things to talk about as guys.
Right.
Whereas like it's pretty out of the ordinary for someone to be like, man, like I'm really like struggling in my relationship. Could I throw something at you and we like talk through this? People are like, what the fuck? No. Like, I don't know, just figure it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Whereas like this is a space to get feedback from other men, to just talk about the things that are going on in your life and to get support on it. And then we also add in elements of, so there's most of the time, like pretty much every meeting has two components. There's one piece where we do that. We get everyone to check in and just like share regularly how their week's going, how they're doing. And then there's space to be like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And then we also end up doing some kind of process type stuff. So
Okay.
there'll always be something going in the background where we just invite guys to speak more deeply about some aspect of their life, or do some emotional processing. We might do some breath work, or we might do some like anger processing kind of work. We'll do like some fuck yous and like help guys get into their anger and
move it through the body, move that energy.
Bingo.
Have permission to do that. Yeah.
Which is that's a big piece of it that's like so valuable, because anger is just so demonized in society, but it's
a
really
thing
is
called healthy rage. You know, you got to let it out.
100%.
Yeah.
And like we were talking before, it's like it just hurts you if you don't. But it's
For sure.
if you don't have spaces to, it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
So that's in a nutshell what we do. And over time, you know, you open up more. You learn to trust men. You learn to share your secrets, and not and people don't turn away from you or judge you or run away. Like, they come closer, they trust you more, and you start to learn that it's actually, not only is it safe, but it's actually really helpful to build the relationships at that deeper level.
Absolutely.
When you can, you know, and you have eventually, so all of our groups with ARCA, at least different groups do it different ways, but within ARCA, you join a group and you're with that same group indefinitely. And you meet every week, and you just have your core group of like 10 to 15 guys, and you carry each other through all the things that are going on. And I run a couple other groups outside of that as well that are slightly different formats, but it's all revolving around that kind of idea of just, it's like masterminding, but masterminding about like our life, not like, men are used to using that terminology for business. They're like, oh, I've got this like business problem that I need to like workshop and solve, but like, where do they go to do that for their marriage? Or for like the fact that they can't get a fucking erection to save their life anymore. The fact that like they're really struggling with their dad died, and they don't know what, they're just fucking balled up with grief, and they don't know what to do with it. You know, it's like there's all these things that you get a space to deal with. You get a space to fucking let it out, and just it's so it's powerful shit.
Yeah, it's powerful, and it's so necessary, because a lot of these men, especially like, you know, in and around the age of 40, 50, 60, they grew up with that old school mentality that was passed on to them from their dad, that was passed on to them from their grandfather. And, you know, it's only been in recent years that therapy or coaching has become more acceptable, whereas before, even I remember when my friend Murray, you know, about almost 8 years ago, suggested therapy or coaching for me. Like, right away, I was like,
No.
like,
what are you trying to say?
You know? and it was the landmark form that she had bought me for my birthday, and I will say best gift ever. And there's just this negative stigma to coaching or therapy that most people, especially a lot of men, resist the work. And they resist for obviously a number of reasons. One being,
ego.
First off, admitting, what do you mean? Like, I don't understand it. Like, you know, like I'm self-aware. I get it, you know. But again, we can only see the world through the glasses we're wearing, through the perspective that we have, and often we need to step out of that perspective in order to see the situation for what it really is. But we can't do that on our own, you know. And even if you read all the books, watch all the documentaries, you're still consuming that content from the current perspective, and until you have a shift in the way you perceive things, a shift in your beliefs, you're going to continue to have the same outcome or same, result from it. And working with a coach, attending a retreat, attending a men's circle, these are new type of, I'll call it, options, modalities, processes that people can use. And what I'm finding is that younger people, like guys who are like even in their mid-20s, early 30s, are joining retreats and signing up for the coaching because it seems like they're almost a little bit more conscious or open-minded to see that, okay, I don't want to repeat the patterns, behaviors that my father has passed on to me, and they're disrupting the cycle of growing up with parents who don't know how to communicate, who don't ask them how they're feeling, who father to son sit down and be like, what's going on in your world? What's happening? How are you feeling? Being able to hold space for their own son. Yeah. When I think about my upbringing, my father never really asked me like, hey son, how are you feeling? What's going on? How's your relationship? And that's because
and his father didn't ask that of
his
him
father
either.
never did. And he actually almost felt embarrassed to do that. He didn't even know how to.
Totally.
And a result of not being able to communicate in that way, also never heard, son, I love you. I'm proud of you. I support you. Like those words from your father are so important. And I talked to my father about this. He's like, well, you should know that I love you. You should know that I'm proud of you. I'm like, yeah,
how if you don't
tell
me?
A part of me wants to believe that, of course, but a part of me needs to hear it.
Yeah.
Really needs to hear it. And working with men now as well, father wounds, how our dads show up and don't show up for us are so important, and that's why, for any of the fathers who are watching or listening to this podcast, it's so important to show up as a father you wish you had, and yeah, it might be uncomfortable to sit down with your son and ask, how are you feeling, or to open up and share something really personal about yourself. But if your son doesn't feel safe coming to you, he's not going to know how to express himself, and if he doesn't know how to express himself, he's going to hold those emotions and hold those feelings inside. And that's why like a men's circle or like the retreat that I went on is so important, because you learn to trust other men, and you learn that you can be open and vulnerable and say what needs to be said, what you've pushed down for decades, and it's okay. There's no judgment there. You're in a safe space. And it's something that I wish more people knew about. And that's why, I really was looking forward to having this conversation with you, because you do this work and you've been doing it for quite some time, and experiencing your leadership and, how you hold space in a men's circle. I truly wish that more men who are doing this work see themselves as a potential leader, or call it, someone who can also step into that role. And what's happening with some of the clients that I've been working with, which is so beautiful to see, is they're taking the lessons or the modalities or the tools that I'm teaching them, and they're actually bringing it to work. They're bringing it to their men's golf event, like where the boys get together. They're now showing up as leaders in their communities and for their families, which is so beautiful to see, because when we do the inner work and we start to become more complete with the parts of us that we've needed to really make peace with, when we can be more whole and complete, we now show up for our loved ones, for our associates, for our employees in a different way. And that's why it's like, doing this work, it's not just for you, it's for everyone in your life. And yeah, it can be uncomfortable, and it can be painful, and it can be scary, but on the other side of that fear, I know it sounds super cliche, but on the other side of fear, on the other side of all that resistance and the pain, is your liberation, is your freedom. And I know, we had a chance to talk after I came back from that men's retreat about a month ago, and I just felt that there had been like some heavy weights that had been dragging along for the last 30 years or longer that had just been like cut off. It was just like, I just feel lighter. I feel more in love with myself. You know, I feel like I can look in the mirror and I really like what I see. And, you know, we talked
Has
about
that ever not been the case for you?
well, I mean, I really like my hair, you know. No, but that's the other thing. You can do all the things. You can have the nice car, the fancy clothes. You can even have a lot of money, and you can feel
like shit on the
good
inside.
about that stuff. But like, I know, let's say cognitively, okay, I'm not a bad-looking guy. I'm fit. I'm successful. I'm smart. I'm worldly. I've got some great attributes. But do I really deep down, when you go below, deeper than all of that, do I actually believe I'm worthy of love? Do I actually love every inch of myself? Because yeah, the car, the clothes, the watch, the money, the titles, the status, all that, yeah, can make you feel good, make you feel accomplished. But on a deep, deep, deep subconscious level, do you actually really love and accept yourself? And that's where I feel most people get stuck, where they are held back from really, truly achieving their greatness in life, because they can do all this stuff. They can show up or appear to be a certain way in the world, but deep down, there's this kernel of self-doubt or
That's the
a
inner
lack of
work.
self-love that will sabotage everything. And, you know, we talked about this earlier. The amount of money you'll make in life is directly correlated to the amount of self-love and acceptance you have for yourself. Because especially in going from, you know, in the journey of becoming a coach, or whatever, or even, you know, launching a business, you know, and now you're going to be the boss. If you don't really love yourself, if you don't really feel confident that you love and accept yourself, you believe in who you are, there's always going to be that frequency of self-doubt and fear in your energy field. And other people will feel it. Your staff will feel it. Your clients will feel it. Your wife will feel it. Your partner will feel it. And it requires getting really, really, really fucking deep to remove those beliefs, to let go of that old story. And you got to be willing to go there. And that's why this work is so important, because it's not a one and done. I go to a retreat or I work with a coach for 3 months and okay, like it's years and years and years. You know, I've been in the work since 2015 now, and it was just this last retreat that I went on that was like, oh wow, okay, wow, there's something that was let go of that I didn't even know was there still. But once it's gone, it's like, ooh, wow, okay, holy shit, that was good. That was good. But you gotta be willing. You gotta be committed, and you gotta ask for help and be open to receiving it. And I think that's where a lot of men get stuck. They don't know how to ask for help. They're doing what I've done for years: lone wolf. Fuck you. I don't need you. I got this. I'll figure it out. And you just keep grinding away on your own. But we know that that'll only take you so far. Yeah.
100%. And that's why, you know, when we get into these groups, that's the first thing that we do within the ARCA brotherhood groups is we talk about our relationships with our dads. You know, that's the first kind of like deep processy type thing we do with everyone. Is once we've gotten to know each other a little bit, you know, you open up and talk about, like, how was your relationship with your dad? How was his life? How was his relationship with his dad? Because you know, there's so many patterns that you can see when you start to look at all that show up in your life. And it's only by looking at these things and dissecting them and you know, then if it's not, you know, like if you've done things a certain way, if this is how you learn and you've recreated the results of your life right now and it sucks, it's like you're gonna have to change some shit. And it's but it's powerful, because you can heal a lot of that stuff with other men. It doesn't necessarily have to be going and like doing therapy with your dad to heal these dad wounds or the worthiness piece or any of this stuff. A lot of that can be done just a lot of it is your relationship with the masculine in general. There's a lot of guys that just, you know, they either hate their dad or hate structure, or like there's so many different ways that it can show up in life. But you know, when you're willing to lean in. And a big piece, the first, like, whenever I start with a new client, the first piece of my program that I take them through is kind of this twofold thing of, it's like you have to take responsibility for everything. You have to be willing to, like, set aside. You have to be willing to be wrong, essentially, and you have to take 100% responsibility for everything that you've done in your life. Because a lot of people blame a lot of shit on other people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, but like the economy, or but this, or but I got screwed over, or I got whatever." And it's like every time you do that, you give your power away.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of guys also, like, this is why a big part of why you have to pay for coaching as well, because like I could give someone advice for free, but if they're not invested, if they're not willing to be coachable, then they'll just be like, whatever, I know better, you know? And like that piece is one of the biggest things that I think blocks a lot of people from actually improving in their life.
Yeah.
Is they think they have all the answers.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
It's like, well, then why the fuck haven't you figured it out yet?
Yeah.
You know, if what you're doing is so good, why haven't you achieved the results you're trying to achieve? Why do you still feel like a bag of shit when you look in the mirror? Why is your relationship such a struggle? Why have you been divorced fucking 3 times?
Yeah.
Why do you have that huge gut?
Why do your kids not talk to you? Yeah.
100%, right?
And you know, the thing is
it takes a lot of courage. Sorry, just to finish that thought. It's like, that's real fucking scary for most guys.
Yeah.
Is to admit that they're wrong. Or like, it's that ego piece.
Yep.
And people have to be willing, guys and girls, but it's usually a little stronger with men, I find. It's like you have to be willing to set down that ego and be like, yeah, like maybe I'm wrong about some shit. Maybe like the way I see the world and the way the beliefs that I have are flawed.
Or maybe that worked at one point in time in my life and it helped me get to where I am now. But for me to move on beyond this point, that shit's not going to fly.
Yeah,
because
it got me to here, but it's not going to get me to where I want to be.
And that's often what I hear from guys when it comes to coaching. It's like, yeah, my life's not perfect. No one's perfect. You know, my life's great. It's good. You know, yeah, there's some things I could change, but they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, and they don't necessarily, because they're in their own bubble, in their own perspective, they don't necessarily see the long-term repercussions, ramifications of what their life looks like if they continue on for the next 20, 30 years being that way. And it's also scary for men to think about, well, what if I change? What if I don't need to grind as hard anymore? Or what if I let go of the attachment of needing to be the CEO or the 9-figure, whatever, you know,
outwork everyone all the time.
Then who am I if I'm not that guy anymore? And, you know, I remember once I spoke to a friend and he said, you know, like, what happens if I lose the demons that drive me? You know, then what? And I said, well, what if you don't? Because those demons will ultimately destroy you. And it's about coming to peace with the parts of you that you know are wounded, that are holding on to the pain, that no longer serve you, and being able to work through them with love and compassion, understanding that that's who you were and that's part of your journey that's gotten you to where you are. And for you to go from good to great, you're going to have to let that shit go. And you're going to have to be open and raw and real and be open to asking for help, because we can't figure it out on our own. Yes, eventually, after many, 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 many years and lots of deep work, you could figure out on your own. But for most people, they don't have the patience, they don't have the resources, and they don't have the time.
And that demons piece, you know, like, I had a conversation with someone about this a little while ago, like guys like Kelly Slater. It's like, what the fuck is driving him? Like, he's probably got some shit going on inside to be like that competitive, to go for his like 13th world champ at almost 50 or whatever, you know, like crazy. Like, why, you know, like, what is this? What are you getting out of this? You know? And a lot of guys, those demons can drive them to success. And I feel like the uncertainty or the craziness in their mind at that point is like, they think that the success is the recipe for happiness. You know, it's like they think like if I just achieve enough, if I like win the ego game hard enough, then that equals being happy. But like you said, it's like they got there, they have achieved a lot of shit. It's like it hasn't made them happy. It's like they're fucking everything. Like maybe you made success, but like all the other things in your life are blowing up or whatever. You know, it's like, so again, you gotta set a new chart. You gotta chart a new course and set new goals for actually happiness needs to be the goal at some point if you want to achieve that.
Yeah.
It's not just gonna magically come when there's a certain number or a certain multiple of a number in a bank account. You know, it's like you gotta create it. You gotta go through a lot of this process and the work and build the relation. You know, there's so much to it. It's not just fucking success.
Yeah. And to your point about someone who's uber successful, who's known as being one of the world's best at whatever, that's their identity. That's who they think they need to be.
Right.
And if they aren't that thing anymore, if they're not that role, not that position, that title, then who are they? You know, and that's where a lot of CEOs or founders sell their companies and they go into massive depression after, even though they might have millions of billions after, they go into depression because they just don't know who they are anymore. And that's why I think also holds a lot of men back and women, because we're speaking about men, we'll stick to that, from making that departure. And I remember I felt that because when I closed Blowfish, out of all my companies, Blowfish was the one I was probably best known for because it was open for 15 years and it was very successful, catering to people from all over. And I remember one day I was in Miami and I was speaking to someone who lived in Miami, originally from Toronto. And I said, yeah, did you ever go to Blowfish? She's like, oh my God, yeah, I love that restaurant. My husband and I went on our first date there. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, I used to own Blowfish. I used to own Blowfish. I don't own Blowfish anymore. I'm like, oh, yeah. And to me, it felt like I was speaking about someone who had passed away. Like, because Blowfish for me was like, being the owner was like my claim to fame or like my credibility, and that role and that identity of being Zark, the King Street Club guy with all the different bars and restaurants, businesses. It's like, that's who I thought I was. That's who I thought the world knew me to be. And you are not your identity. And if anything, you and myself are living proof that you can wake up one day and say, I don't want to be that guy anymore. Yeah. I don't want to live that life. I don't want to do those things. I don't want to have to put my time and energy into things and people that don't make me feel truly alive. Yeah. And if you want that change bad enough, anything is possible, but you got to be willing to take that first step.
Yeah. And also, like, there's the want. There's sometimes you'll have the desire to make that change. Sometimes you don't get to live that life anymore. No. Sometimes life decides for you.
Yeah. Universe
like
gives you the big
broken
shove.
neck, with the company like backing out, and there's and either way, whether you choose it or not, it still sucks, and it's still fucking gut wrenching to go through reinventing yourself and letting go of, like, you literally go through a death. This whole life dies, and you have to grieve that. You have to go through the muck of letting that move through, and you have to rebuild from scratch or some version of that. And for guys like you and me that have gone through that in their lives, it's not as scary. Like, I know now, it's like if I needed to blow this up and start something else, it would suck again, but I also know that it would be, I've done it before, I can do it again. Yeah. Whereas like a lot of guys and people in general haven't done that. If you follow the little, check all the boxes and go to school, go to university, get a job, stay in your job, like to then think about blowing up your life for the first time or like restarting from scratch for the first time, that is horribly terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's part of the, it's easy to say, like, for sure, you just got to change everything in your life. Yeah. You're like, but.
And what made it, I want to say easy for me, but what really fueled and inspired me was I knew that I was walking away from something that I'm very proud of, and I feel very complete with my 25-year career in entertainment and nightlife. And I knew that I was walking away from that to begin something that was of much greater purpose. See, I thankfully knew that I was going to transition into retreats and eventually coaching, and that what I was going to create for people was going to have truly life-changing results. And I had to take that first step and try hosting a retreat to be like, wow, this feels good. I want to do more of this.
Yeah.
And that's where I say, if you want the change, you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone and take that first step, even though it may not be exactly what you want. You may not know which direction you want to go, but at least take a step and try something new. Put yourself out there and see what that experience is like to disrupt your usual routine and the way you feel about your life, your career when you get up every day. And taking that first step also shows the universe, like, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to try something different, you know. And definitely finding my purpose. And even though I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, I just knew that I really want to help other people to discover for themselves the possibility that lies beyond this average life that they're living. And it's in being of service to other people that really gave me the courage and the inspiration to step off the ledge and make the big move. Because I remember people were like, you're going to move to Costa Rica? Why? You're like walking away from your company? It's like, what if it doesn't work? And I'm like, what if it does?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, I'll just come back. It's okay, you know, or I'll figure it out, you know. And
do it again.
And again, when you're an entrepreneur and you know how to start something from scratch, you have that resilience and you have that belief in yourself. And for anybody who's watching or listening who maybe, you know, hasn't been an entrepreneur before, and you know that there's something greater out there for you, you know, you really have to listen to your intuitive guidance. You have to be able to go within and really trust what your gut, what your heart is telling you, and be willing to shut out the naysayers and be willing to, you know, get beyond that saboteur, that voice in our heads that tries to keep us playing small and tries to hold us back from stepping into our greatness. And, you know, when we're able to really find that true purpose, our divine calling, or, you know, the reason we were born, life is just different. You know, it really, it's a beautiful feeling to know that you're doing what you were born to do. Yeah. And
getting to help people.
Yeah.
And getting to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. That's a big part of what it all boils down to. A lot of people, you know, back to that ego conversation, a lot of people are just out trying to make themselves look good, trying to amass as much money for themselves as possible to take care of themselves. But, you know, usually for most people, they like being more of service for the world, like trying to make the world a better place, trying to help people, trying to do something that's not just for yourself is very fulfilling.
Absolutely. And the universe supports that.
Yeah.
And gives you whatever you need, you know?
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So share a bit of your offerings. You know, what do you got going on these days?
I work primarily one-on-one with mostly men. I do the odd breath session here and there for women. I actually had one this morning with a lady, but most of my stuff is around men. I have a 6-month like deep dive program that I take guys through that's kind of a culmination of a lot of the stuff we've been talking about today. So it's like a kind of past, present, future type of look at your life of like digging deep into all of your shit, your family history, your relationships with money, your romantic relationships, all that kind of stuff. Getting clear on like who you've been and all of your internal patterns. Then taking some time to really like be in the present, to connect with people, to fine tune your body, your mind, things like meditation and diet and exercise, all that, like making this work really well. And then moving into the future of like, where do you actually want to go in life? What do you want to create? You know, what's the life you want to live into, and how do you get there? So Beautiful. It's, and then with I do a lot of breath work with my clients throughout this process as well, because like we kind of touched on in there, we all have a lot of blocks for achieving these things. You
Yeah.
might have ideas, you might have goals, but like you also have a lot of internal beliefs that are keeping you in the life you're in right now. So being able to like move this stuff and move the emotions, move the stuck energy, heal the trauma that has kind of caused you to be in the state that you're in right now is a part of the process. And for a lot of guys as well, it's connecting with their power and with their emotions and with the whole range of them, not just most guys suck at kind of crying, but also most guys suck at expressing anger and like really being fully expressed in general. Most guys are kind of geared towards like be stoic, don't show emotions, be a fucking robot. Like being a robot is almost like idealized by a lot of guys, and just like make lots of money and period.
Never get too sad, but never be too happy. Just kind of.
But you can be happy. Happy is like I feel like fairly allowed as long as you're not like showboating or being egotistical.
Well,
but it's like
what I've learned though is when you suppress your sadness, you suppress your pain, you also suppress your joy and your ability to express that happiness. Because
it's a range. You clip both ends.
Yeah, you've kind of numbed yourself. And I believe to be alive means to feel the full range of emotions. And as you say that, I'm like, yep, sounds like me, because I can see that I've really numbed myself from feeling pain and anger in my life. And I chose to do that unconsciously at a young age because there are things that I experienced that I didn't know how to process. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know how to move through that. So I just shut it down and locked it in there. And I don't fucking want that in me anymore. Yeah. I want to be free of that. And that is the inner work. That is getting deep into those layers to feel that pain, to feel that fear and discomfort that you locked in so long ago, and to be willing to experience it, even though it's fucking scary, so that you can let it move through you. And it's not easy.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's a process. As you can imagine, for a lot of people, they have no idea where to even fucking start on something like that. So that's where guys like us come in. We help kind of guide people through that. For me personally, in my practice, I tend to attract guys that are like either hard guys needing to learn soft skills, or guys that are already connected to their hearts, connected to their emotions, but they don't have the confidence to really go and build a business or become a coach or do the thing that they want to do. So it's like helping guys on either end of that spectrum move towards that kind of balanced middle where you can be fucking strong and confident, but also be able to flow, be able to, hold space for people, to be able to just understand and be with the range of, all of it. It's that kind of, if you've read any of David Data's stuff, he talks about it as the kind of third stage masculinity. Yeah. So that essentially is what I help guys do.
Beautiful.
Because you need both a lot. You have to have a good balance of masculine and feminine and understand and how to work with all of them in order to experience joy and happiness in life.
Yeah. And a lot of alpha-driven male entrepreneurs are so in their masculine, which is why they know how to make shit happen, but they're not nurturing their feminine, the inner feminine. They don't know how to allow.
Not even nurturing it. They don't even understand it.
Yeah, they don't even have awareness. Yeah,
they're idiots when it comes to that. And I hope that pissed some people off hearing that just now, because that's the whole thing. It's like but it's just a skill set. You haven't learned about it. You haven't understand it. Like you understand business, you understand making money, but like in order to be happy, there's a whole bunch more shit that you need to learn about. And it's being, like I said before, it's being willing to admit that you don't know everything and that you've got shit to learn. Yeah. So that you can get to that place.
And if there's one thing that will motivate men to understand what it means to tap into their inner feminine, is you'll never know how to really show up and hold the divine feminine until you could hold the divine feminine within yourself. Until you know how the feminine within you wants to be nurtured and held, you won't know how to do that for another. And I mean, we could have a whole podcast on masculine and feminine energy. However, it's like, we all have the masculine, feminine energy alive within us. And there are things that very masculine men can do to nurture, stimulate, make, let's say, like, bring her to life, whether that be through singing, dancing, art, whether it be through
breath work.
Yeah, through things
It's
that
just like
allow you
connecting with
yeah.
that side of
Yeah.
yourself. There's all sorts of ways of like embodying it, practicing kind of being in that energy, and learning to accept it. That's a big piece of it, because most men have a lot of judgment towards the feminine.
Yeah.
You know, they think it's just dumb and silly, and like, why do I need to learn about emotions? That's stupid.
Because that's what their father taught them, and that's what was passed
And
on
society.
to them. Yeah, and society. And if it ain't broke, why fix it, right? But what they don't actually see what's missing, because if you don't have an awareness or understanding of what that means to be in balance with your masculine and feminine energy, then you wouldn't even comprehend what out of balance means in that way, right? So, yeah, it's powerful, necessary work. It's a beautiful journey, and I do believe that we're I believe at the beginning of a new stage in, I'll call, humanity, where the paradigm of what it means to be a successful man is shifting. I feel we're at the beginning stages of redefining what it means to be a man who's successful, abundant, strong, showing up as a leader, because that old model that is unhealthy, it's toxic, and it's not true leadership, because the world, the state of the planet, is an example
Of that.
is of
Gone too far.
of the current masculine leadership has created the world that we currently live in. And I think one thing everybody could agree on,
There's some things that need to change.
we're not in the best fucking situation right now on planet Earth. And I've often said that the future is feminine, and I mean that by saying that men need to tap into their feminine energy, so they're not so ego driven, they're not so in the doing all the time, but they actually tap into their heart and be more in the being, being more in flow, as opposed to
And just shifting the goalposts, because I feel like a big part of why everything is so fucked right now is that somewhat toxic masculine approach of like the bottom line is the bottom line. You know, like all these companies out there just trying to make a buck at the expense of the world, at the expense of our people. And, we're seeing that, and the control and all the stuff that's being implemented right now. It's like, none of it is for the betterment of us and the planet and all these things.
It's for a handful of old rich men to get richer.
Yeah. And we're seeing that break down right now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's going to be bumpy. And while the feminine is there, I see the future as balanced, because the feminine on its own, like, you can't run a fucking meeting, or you can't like get anything done without bringing in the masculine.
Absolutely.
Like, we need both. That's actually what this means, the Sri Yantra, I believe it's called. Like the balance of the masculine and the feminine, because they need each other.
Absolutely.
We all need each other.
I thank you for doing the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for being committed to helping men find that balance within themselves, and for supporting them on this journey, because the world needs more men who are living from a balanced place, honoring their heart, honoring their brilliant minds, but at the same time choosing love over fear, and really just showing up as leaders in the world, because that's what we need more now than ever before, is real heart-led leaders who want to see the planet, humanity, our animals thrive.
Totally. The world needs better men. That's the name of my program, is Better Men. So
I like that
that's
subtle
what we're
plug
doing.
there. There you go. Nice.
And that's the working title for the podcast too.
Nice.
Which is coming out soon.
Nice. Love it. Well, congratulations on that. Look forward to seeing you launch yet another aspect of your business. And
just get this message out, because it's important. More people need to be having these conversations and questioning the way they do things.
For sure. Yeah.
So that we can keep our species alive.
That's it. Yeah. More men need to know that it's okay. You're not alone. Lots of other men are feeling the same pressure, stress, anxiety, and it's
We're
all
all
good.
dealing with the same shit.
Yeah, in our own way. Yeah, cool. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, my man.
And
been fun.
yeah, man, it's a pleasure to see your evolution and growth. And I appreciate all your support. And looking forward to
Likewise.
more future collaborations.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same here, my man.
All right.